Hi folks, this is Craft, and in today's video we're going to be making some supply crates and ammo boxes. Using XPS foam, we're going to be cutting them down to shapes of around 4x4 centimeters. We'll break another one of them down just to make a bit more of a variation. Next we're going to take our craft knife and we're going to trim along the edges just to take away those points and to give them a bit more shape. Now when you're doing this part, make sure you're using a knife that's got a sharp blade, or else instead of cutting your foam it's going to make it tear, which will give you some rough edges. Once we've trimmed down most of them, we're going to take the few extra left over, we're going to glue them together to give ourselves some larger crates. I'm using wood glue for this. I find that it works pretty well gluing foam together, and it's relatively quick drying. Once that's done, we're going to be using a sculpting tool with a round edge just to mark out some grooves into the foam to give the impression of lids. Tiny little bit of extra detail, make it look less flat. You can always add more detail, you can do this to whatever level that you choose. For the purposes of this, I'm just going to make them relatively simple. Later on I'll show you some ones that I've made off screen that have a little bit more interest to them. Now that the glue is set, we're just going to do the same as we did before and trim down the edges of these larger pieces. The hardest part I find for this is getting everything to scale, so it's always handy to throw down a model just so you can make sure that everything looks right. One of the good things about the 40k universe is that they don't know the meaning of the word small, so these can be a little bit overscaled. Now if you choose, you can keep these all as individual pieces, and that way you can stack them however you like. But for the majority of them, I'm going to be gluing them together. That way you don't really need to worry about them being knocked over or moving whenever you're playing. Now when you're doing this, you want to make sure that you're stacking them so that they can be used as cover, but also so that they look organic. These ones and the larger ones I'll just leave separate. Now next we're going to seal the foam to make it ready for paint by mixing some Mod Podge is the brand name, but I'm using some of Hobbycraft's own brand Decoupage Medium mixed in with a little black acrylic paint. Now you can just slap this mixture all over your crates, and then once that's done just leave them to dry. Once this dries, this will just seal the foam and it'll give you a nice even coat to paint over the top of. Now I ended up adding a second coat to these just to give them a bit more of a base layer and to make sure that it was fully sealed all over. Next we're going to select our colours. I'll be theming these for 40k and kill teams, so I'm going to use some colours that I feel will be appropriate in an industrial setting. Once you've made your choices, just slap on a couple of coats. For peace of mind, try to use a bigger brush, but unfortunately I didn't have one available. Once you've fully coated all your pieces, we'll just take another little test with our model to make sure that they're all looking okay. we'll just make sure that it will be blocking line of sight and they'll be appropriate to use for cover. Next, what we'll be doing, we'll be applying 2 washes. The first one we're going to use is a null oil, which you can always just make these yourself with a little bit of black paint and water. You just need to make sure that you heavily water down the paint, and that way you're just making a stain. Now we're going to take this black and we're just going to slap it all over the pieces. And we're not going to bother about how heavy handed we're going to be here. You can dab any of the excess off later, but mostly just let it dry and it will sit into any recesses. Now once that's been left to dry, we're going to turn over to our second wash and we're going to use an Agrax Earthshade, which again you can just make yourself by using a brown paint and plenty of water. For this one, we're not going to completely cover the pieces, we're going to dab and splash it around to give the impression of oil or other fluids have been dripping on it. We're going to take it right to the edges and let it drip down the pieces so that it gives a more realistic look. You can just slap it on and spread and move it around to get the desired effect. Once that's all dry and you're happy with how it's turned out, bearing in mind with the green ones this didn't really show very well, the grey and the red took it much better. This is the one that I did previously with a little bit more detail. Now all I've did is added a few extra strips of foam and carved in an extra couple of lines to give them a bit more shape and interest. And here's just a quick shot of them laid out on a board. And that brings us to the end. You now have yourself some crates and boxes to be used as scatter terrain to spruce up your table just a little bit. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe for some upcoming content, and thanks for watching.